Welcome everybody to the Music Show. I'm Ray Braselton, your host.
And I'm Nick Rita, co-host.
Today we have for you the Craig Snyder Fusion Group. It's a jazz fusion band, and they're from the Rochester, Greater Finger Lakes, Rochester area. And I think you'll...
Craig's from Canandaigua.
Yeah,
right?
And we even have somebody from Webster.
Wow.
And so, you know, we got quite a distance between them. But I think you'll really enjoy the jazz fusion if you're into it. These guys are real professionals. They played for people, pretty big, important people. One person in this group plays actually with, is it Gap Mangione?
Mangione,
Mangione.
Right.
And
Orchestra, yeah.
There's several well-known artists and people that they play out with that they'll mention to you on the show that you'll recognize.
I think people will enjoy it because it's a nice mix. There's a jazz feel to it, but there's a lot of the backbeat, the rock backbeat, right, that people really seem to enjoy these days.
Yeah. So you want to enjoy this show today, stay tuned, and of course we'll have the regular segments, you know, the Uncle Nick's Corner, and we have a little quite interesting showcase with, what's that feature again? The modification and setup.
Yeah, because Craig does, that's another thing that he does other than playing and teaching. He also does repair and set up, so that'll be a nice segment.
And of course he's got his CD, and we'll talk a little bit about his CD to you. And just they're all the teachers, by the way. They all teach. Some of them have as much as 30 years of teaching experience by them. They teach at colleges, two or three colleges they teach at. So they're well known in the area. Stay tuned. Enjoy the show, everybody, and see you in a bit.
Don't touch that dial.
Stay around. Don't go anywhere. Welcome, Rochester, to the Music Show. I'm Ray Braselton, your host, and this is the interview segment of our show. And we have for you today the fusion jazz band called the Craig Snyder Fusion Group. And I just said your name. I guess I introduced you, Craig.
That's it.
What area are you from town?
I'm originally from Pennsylvania, but I live in Canandaigua, and I've lived there for many years, so I call that home.
Mm-hmm. And you play the rhythm and lead guitar pretty much with the band.
Yes, I do. I compose most of the original tunes. I'm waiting for my guys. They're very capable, but right now I'm composing all the tunes and arranging them.
Pretty much you're the main person. When you've played with other groups, you usually carry most everything, don't you?
Yes, I played in bands from 2-piece bands to 125-piece choral groups.
We'll have to get more into that later. We'll turn around and introduce a few of the other people. I guess we could come to old Nick. He's been with us before. Nick. Sorry about that. Neil, go ahead.
I've been called worse.
You can introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name is Neil Drager, and I play the bass.
Right. And
I'm Steve Curry, and I'm the drummer.
And you're from the Webster area, aren't you?
I'm actually from West Webster, right here.
Wow.
Yep,
Okay.
grew up right here. Yep.
Well, we want to tell you we really enjoyed what you've done so far, and we appreciate you being on the show and having you back again, Neil.
Yeah,
Neil played with Harv Hutchins here years ago, and I had a lot of fun with old Elvis Presley. So,
That's right.
had several questions for you, and I guess how often do you guys actually play together, Craig? You three.
We end up getting about 1 gig a month right now because everybody's doing different things and
Playing with other groups, I assume. Too,
Yeah.
and-
Steve Curry, the drummer, he's very, very good and very in demand, so he's playing with a lot of groups. But we end up playing about once a month.
And then Neil, of course, you play with Harv a lot. And
Yeah,
everything.
and I've got my own group called Troika, an original rock group that we've been playing together for a few years now, and working on our second album right now. So.
Great.
Yeah.
Have to get Troika on the show again.
Yeah, that'd be great. We should.
I didn't think about that. And I know Steve is very involved, and you. First of all, we have teachers here. 2 or 3. Do you teach? Yeah. So we got 4 of us here. Teach. We all teach. And Steve, you're not only a musician, but you're a teacher. And can you tell us a little bit?
Yeah, that's correct. I teach at Hobart and William Smith College, but I also have a studio. It's in East Rochester where I do private lessons. A lot of kids from Webster, Penfield, Pittsford, and a lot of adult students as well. But after teaching at Hochstein for 18 years, I decided to just have my own studio, and it's worked out really well. Some real talented teachers as well, right in Commercial Street there. So.
And you teach privately, Neil?
I do. I've got only a couple private students right now. My main teaching is done. I teach at Finger Lakes Community College. Teach jazz bass down there. But I am actually in the process of opening a music studio with a friend of mine in Pittsford. It's not the business itself isn't open yet. He's there teaching out of there right now, but it's in the old pickle factory. But keep your ears peeled because we're gonna open for real this fall.
That's
so.
great. That's good. I didn't know that. That's great. And then I know, Craig, you've been teaching for how many years have you been teaching?
I've been teaching almost 30 years now. I teach at Finger Lakes Community College. I also teach at Hochstein at the Canandaigua facility, and I teach privately out of my home in Canandaigua.
Weren't you teaching in the city, Hochstein, too, at one time?
I did. I taught downtown since '02 to '07, and then Hochstein opened up their Canandaigua facility.
Well, I know you play out. I assume this is pretty much your livelihood, isn't it? With playing out and the teaching and everything. That's pretty much what you do. For the most part, right?
That's true. The guitar has actually consumed my whole life. I teach it, I play it. I also have a shop, and I repair instruments, too.
Yeah. Well, that was the next thing I was going to ask you is about your repairing of instruments. I want everybody to know that we are going to have, you and I are going to do a segment called you all know the showcase, the instrumental showcase segment. And Craig and I are going to, we're planning on doing a segment on restoration of instruments, which, the name of the showcase would be Guitar Restoration and Setup, I believe. And,
yes.
And so we're going to do that for you in a while, and we're going to take somebody's guitar and or your guitar and try to do that. So, to stay tuned for that. Oh, let's go on. I know that you played with a lot of interesting people too, and I was just going to ask. I know that you probably played with some fairly interesting people. Anybody in particular besides them?
I've played with many different bands that opened up big shows. I've opened up for Scott Henderson and Tribal Tech, Mike Stern, Laney Stern, The Outlaws, Johnny Winter, many different bands.
A couple, yeah. And I know you, Steve. I was interesting. Craig was telling me I got to ask Steve about this, but apparently Steve's played for Mangione.
Yeah, I've been playing with Gap Mangione for almost 30 years, and mainly in his big band now. And so we play concerts maybe, a few times a year right now. And I also play with this guy named Chet Catello, who's a well-known guitar player. And that's probably one of the most recent albums I've done. He has an album out, recorded with some really good musicians from Rochester. So I work with and I freelance around. I work with probably, dozens of different musicians in town. So
a lot of people are freelancing these days, and I know, Neil, you probably have a few people you can talk about too, but being we're out of time, let's but Neil,
the answer to that is yes.
Yes. Who?
I'm not going to drop names. No, I freelance with a handful of local musicians, some singers, some sax players. But,
that's good. Okay, so I guess the next logical thing is to ask, has this group got a CD together? I think we've got a CD.
Not this particular arrangement of musicians, but Steve and I were featured on a CD I released a few years back called Earthbound, and worked together on quite a few cuts. There were different musicians on that.
Yeah, I should have brought it up with us, but we'll show it to you, the CD cover and everything during the roundtable, and we'll be talking. We got a lot of things to talk about besides our usual, and we'll get into that at the roundtable if everybody's okay with that. How about a website and everything? That you have a website that you can.
Yes, my website is I said that wrong. Let me start over. www.craigsnyder.net. So there's two S's in the middle. craigsnyder.net.
Okay, and email or phone number that you wish to.
There's a link there. There's a contact page. You can
so
link right to it.
Okay. Well, guys, again, thank you. A nice interview. Thank you. But we're going to get more in depth. We'll have some fun during the roundtable. We always do. And we'll get more in depth with that stuff later. So let's get on with our next song, guys, okay?
Sounds good.
Okay. I'll see you in a bit. Stay tuned.
The next song we're going to do for you is by Jimi Hendrix. It's called Little Wing.
Well, she's walking through the clouds with a circus mind, ooh, that's running wild. Butterflies and zebras and moonbeams and fairy tales. She's running with the wind. When I'm sad, ooh, she comes to me, and with 1,000 smiles, she gives me free. It's alright, it's alright, it's alright, she says. Now, baby, you can take anything you want from me. Now, play your little wheel. Fly, baby, come on. me free. Yeah, it's alright, she said. Now, baby, you can take anything you want from me. Now, flying little me. Yeah, baby, come on.
Hello and welcome again to Uncle Nick's Corner. You know, we cover a lot of different subjects on this, and we get in depth on some things we just skim over. A while back I did a little session on the subject of practice, and I know some of you younger folk out there are saying, practice, practice, I hate to practice. But what I find invariably in my years of teaching, those who dedicate themselves to a good practice schedule always make the best progress. There are some certain issues that we really should talk about when it comes to practice. First of all, the frequency. Frequency of practice always is better if it's every day. You take once a day. The time is kind of like secondary to the frequency. Some people practice only 10-15 minutes a day, and since they get at it every day, they make good progress. Some people practice a half an hour a day. I had one student that I've had for 4 or 5 years who started out, he told me the other night he was frustrated when he first started out because he wasn't getting it. So instead of quitting or instead of just turning around and going the other way, he ended up dedicating about 45 minutes a day. And when he practiced, he continued. And you know, as he was practicing, I hardly noticed that he was struggling because the struggle was taken care of in his practice. And we just continued to go over the things that he needed to work at. Now he's playing in the upper positions. He's doing quite well. So the idea of practicing every day is really a good thing. As far as note reading is concerned, when you learn to note read, the best thing to do is read over your studies once or twice and then go to another one. Keep going to different ones. Trying not to memorize the songs that you're working on, because once you memorize them, they're no longer good for note reading. In fact, once you memorize them, then you go over them again, and that's when your technique ends up getting better and better. You would be playing something, you wouldn't be as concentrating on the note reading part of it, you would be just concentrating on the technique and the manual part of it, moving your fingers and that. So after you become familiar with a reading exercise, that's the best thing to do. Also in that same vein, it's probably good to use finger exercises.
Now I have a whole group of finger exercises that I use. Actually, sometimes I incorporate the pentatonic scale because it's using 1 4 1 3 1 3 1 3 1 4 1 4, and it's within the position, and it's giving you that good 4-finger position. Also, there are some things like that. Individual finger work. I have one where I just move the finger from one string to the next. I don't even play it. But all of them are designed to get your fingers in that good 4-finger position. It gives you independent strength, independent movement, flexibility. That's the key to the left hand of the guitar, is that independent movement, the independent strength. Finger exercises are good for that. Also, one other thing as far as practice is concerned, if you're coming into a passage of music that you're having a little bit of trouble with, isolate it. Take a couple measures, take a whole passage, take one phrase, one measure, and isolate it and go over it and over it again until you have it. Then once you have it, bring the things before it, a measure or two before it, and put it in with that so that you can make the transition from the music that's before it to that problem passage, and then also then coming out of it. So take it in sections. Work on the passage that's the most difficult, then hook it together with the passages before and the passages after. But I can't overemphasize the need for good organized practice. In my own practice time, I designate a little time for technique, a little time for learning new material, a little time for theory, a little time for this, a little time for that. And I try to keep it pretty well organized, and I try to hit it at a regular period of time. If you can't practice every day, try not to get more than a couple days in between, because when you do, you forget what you've done on one practice session, and then if the next one is 4 days later, it's like starting over again. Continuity is the key. Continuity is the key. So anyway, if you have any questions on this subject or any other subject, or if you would like us to cover any subject, just call, write, phone. We have the email address. I bet you it's going across the screen now as I speak. But get in touch with us. We'd be happy to hear from you. So until next time, we'll see you again.
Hello everybody, this is the Instrument Showcase today, and of course I'm Ray Braselton, and we got our co-host with us today.
Hi, I'm Nick Rita, co-host of The Music Show.
Yeah, we're glad to
As you well know.
I sure do. We're so glad to have you with us today, Nick, and help us out. Everybody, this is, of course, Craig Snyder, and he's been doing the show today for us, him and his band, and we're going to do a special instrument showcase for you today with Craig. I think we've done something similar, but not as in detail as we are today. This is going to be what we call the guitar modification, I guess we call it, and setup.
That sounds good.
That sounds good. We'll name it that. We'll put that on the screen.
Yes, Dr. Frankenstein.
Exactly. So, Craig, I talked to you over the phone, and you said, "Yeah, let's try this." And see if we can show the people a little bit in more detail than we've ever done before. I know you've been doing this for a long time, haven't you?
Yes, I've been playing guitar for almost 40 years, and I've repaired and customized instruments almost that long. I've managed several shops, and I still repair instruments out of my home shop.
Let's first show them the. Do you have a guitar you want to show them? This is your guitar you played on the show, isn't it?
Yeah, this is my main guitar. This company unfortunately went out of business. I hope I didn't cause it. But
What's the name of it?
they were called J3. The instruments were made in Korea, some in China, but the finer shops in Korea. This was Korean made. The company was called J3. They were out of Connecticut, and there were 3 guys named John. A man, John Coates, was the main guy. He was a PhD in chemistry, and his son and another guy, and they happened to be all John, so they called it J3. It looks like JB, but it's J3. But the instruments were great. They all came with Grover tuners. They're not neck through. This is a 10-on joint. It's a mahogany slab with a maple cap of about 1/4 of an inch. I love the guitars. Actually, exceptional pickups, the original ones. But this is a Duncan here. That's a JB or an SH4. This is DiMarzio Air Norton. And like part of customizing an instrument is so that it fits the player. I don't like a lot of fancy things. It's got 1 volume control. It had a separate volume control here. This is just a plastic cover that's an automotive plug that you can buy at Lowe's. It had a separate volume for each pickup. I didn't like it. The knobs were too close, and
So there's no tone control.
Yeah, this is a tone.
Okay.
So this is just a master volume.
Oh, it had separate. You said
Yeah,
it
it had
okay.
separates, yeah.
Okay. So you
Good.
took the one and it's
I
just
took the
one
one
master
out.
volume.
Yep, 1 master volume for whoever it is,
And the
master
pickup
tone.
switch.
But this is also a push-pull pot. A push-pull pot, it's called pot, short for potentiometer. That's what a control really is. I mean, all you're seeing here is the knob. Underneath is the actual control. This splits this pickup so it shuts one of the coils off, so it can get a Strat-like tone. You can cut off a coil, but you can't shut off the magnetism. So I can get 2 coils, 1 coil, 1 plus 2 coils, and get all the sounds that I want. I like it very simple. I also have it wired so that the tone control is not recognized when I'm in this position. I just want everything flat out, so I get the pickup, the volume control, and the output jack.
Is this part of the customization that you can do for people is electronically?
Yes.
And do you do that?
Yes, I do a lot of it. A lot of people want guitars wired a certain way. Some people want it simply, I mean, commonly, that's your neck pickup, that's your bridge pickup. Some people like it the other way around. And it's just simply changing a couple wires and making it to what the customer wants. I mean, there's some things you just can't do. I mean, I don't touch vintage pickups. Some people go, well, take this vintage 1967 humbucker and I want it split. Like, don't do that. Buy another.
But isn't it true though that there's so many pickups today that there's really no need even to do that? There's so many different kinds of pickups.
That's absolutely true. I mean, don't modify a pickup that's worth it intrinsically into somebody else. But
Now,
yeah,
some 2-coil pickups are able to be split or put in and out of phase if they have the 2 separate coils with 1 wire from each coil, or
That's
2 wires
correct.
from each coil.
It's pretty simple. Like Nick just said, when you wrap a coil, you have the start and you have the finish. There's 2 ends to every wire. So there's a start and a finish to this coil, the north coil, and there's a start and finish to the south coil. So as Nick pointed out, if you have basically 4 wires, start, finish, and then the ground wire, you can do what's called out of phase, which a lot of people would call the gut bucket sound. The pickup, the sound is very lacking in bass, and it's very trebly sounding. And these are just things you can do for the customer. And a lot of the repairs that probably Nick does and I do is a real common call I get is that somebody had a guitar and they let their friend take it, and their friend thought, oh, I'm going to take a soldering iron to this and try some things out. It's not a good thing to do. I mean, don't do home open heart surgery. It's not a good thing.
Right.
But other simple
Would
things.
you do that to your uncle?
Well, I don't know. I mean,
Oh,
Depends.
but another thing is that Ray and I were talking earlier about calling things the right name. This is a vibrato unit. Tremolo. The word tremolo can mean 2 things: rapidly reiterating the same note, like on a mandolin or an oud or an instrument like that. This is a vibrato, which means a change in pitch. This device changes all the strings in pitch. It's not plugged in now, but or up in pitch. If I only strike 1 string, then you're only going to hear that string. If I hit 2, you're going to hit 2. It gives it a very vocal warble to emulate the human voice. Jeff Beck is the unparalleled master of making it sound like a human voice. This particular unit is called a Kahler, K-A-H-L-E-R, KahlerUSA.com, Dorado, California. This is a totally different unit from the other unit. This does not require any hole in the back of the guitar. If you had a Strat style guitar, you would have a spring cavity, then you'd have the sustain block cavity, and you'd have a lot of wood missing. This unit actually adds mass to the guitar rather than subtracting. There is a hole in here. There's a hole in here about the size, a little bit bigger than a 9-volt battery laying on its side there. This works on a totally different style. This is called a cam, where if you get a close-up of this thing here, I'll get my hand out of the way. If you look at when I depress the vibrato, you'll see that the outer perimeter of the unit doesn't move. So that there are rollers here that allow the string to not have any friction as it goes up or down in pitch. So it adds mass to the guitar, and it allows you to palm mute. If you use other vibrato systems and you put your hand on here and you go and you mute, the thing will go sharp. These are the fine tuners, so that after I lock the nut lock up here, the whole idea is once you get it roughly in tune, you lock it here, and then you fine tune it here, and then you can do ridiculous things like, so the strings are nothing but flab, and then
That's back in tune.
it's perfectly in tune. So you can do all.
That's also a function of the quality of this particular unit, because not all units will do that, will they?
No, if you use the standard Fulcrum style vibrato on, say, a Fender style guitar or a guitar like that, it does not have a locking nut. And most of the problems with the guitar, for any guitar, whether it has a vibrato system on it or it's just a regular hardtail, this is the most important part of the guitar. It really is. It's the spacing of the strings, it's the elevation of the strings over the first fret, it sets the radius for the strings at this point. It also has a lot to do with intonation. I've had a lot of guys come to me and say, well, this guy tried to fix it, that guy tried to fix it. I had Fender look at the guitar or Schecter or whatever company it was, it won't play in tune. First of all, I look at string age. I actually ask the guy to play. A lot of it's player error. And either Ray or Nick will tell you, I can make a guitar go out of tune. I can play a little chord and I can, hear that? I'm pressing so hard on the string, I'm causing it to stretch down.
But also, can it be the fret wires themselves not properly at the proper height?
That's true. The fret is round on the top, like a hot dog. It's round on the top. If it's all flattened on the top, then the intonation can be favored flat or sharp. This guitar is one of the closest guitars I've ever had in intonation. The fret wire is not real tall, and it's not too wide.
But that's a preference too, as far as the height of the fret wire. Some people like them shorter, and some people like them taller, right?
That's absolutely true. Usually more of a, like Nick just said, a blues player would usually like a taller fret because as you bend a note, you're bending across the crown of the fret, and the fret has got to be smooth, and it has to be crowned properly. And the 24th fret, not all guitars have 24, 21, 22, or 24 are common. This is a 24. But at any rate, the first fret and the 24th fret have to be the same height. We're talking thousandths or 2/1000ths of an inch. And a very common repair, as Ray had pointed out, the frets have to be critically maintained. That's leveling and crowning and polishing of the frets. And if you've ever had a guitar that was really expertly set up, you're just ruined for life. You never want to take a guitar off the shelf and just think, oh, I just paid $2 grand for this guitar, it's going to play great. Not necessarily.
Yeah. Well, customizing is what you do, and as far as for most people, this should be taken to somebody who knows what they're doing, or else you can even mess the guitar up more.
That's a great point, Ray.
And so if anybody is interested in learning more, we'll have to do another segment and have you over again, and then have you teach us some more. But is there any other, real quickly, any other customizing things that you do for people other than those two aspects, the electronical and the setups?
Well, I guess you could separate it into customizing and repairing. Repairing would be the leveling of the frets, maybe installing a better set of tuners, replacing the nut is one of the most common. But customizing really is usually wiring options, different pickups. I mean, they all affect the sound. It's where the strings vibration turns into electricity, so it affects the tone. And installing, or sometimes even deinstalling or uninstalling a vibrato unit.
Craig, I want to thank you very much for joining us today, and like I say, it'd be nice to have you come and teach us some more, because I thought it was very interesting. And thank you, Uncle Nick, so much for your great questions, and we want to thank you for being with us today with this segment on what would we call this again? Customizing and setup, I guess.
And modification.
Modification and setup. We'll figure the title later. So thank you, and I guess we can go on with the show, everybody.
Yep. Thank you, Ray. Thanks, Nick.
Thank you.
Welcome to the Roundtable. I'm Ray Braselton, your host.
And I'm Nick Rita, co-host.
And we hope you enjoyed our group. That's the fusion jazz group called the Craig Snyder Fusion Group. And we have, of course, Craig Snyder, our leader here today, and Steve Curry, and Neil Neil Drager, and of course he's been on our show before, so I should know his name. But we're very glad to have you again, Neil, and thank you for joining us. It was a great job today, and wanted to check with you on a few things before we sign off for the day. We've had, you guys are all involved. In fact, we're all teachers. All 5 of us are teachers. And you teach, maybe you could just mention the places that you teach.
I teach at Finger Lakes Community College, the Hochstein at Canandaigua facility, and I also teach out of my home in Canandaigua.
You also teach, you have done a clinic type thing, I believe, at Colgate University?
Yes, I taught the last 2 summers for Eastern United States Music Camp. It was a very intensive program that they had. I've done that the last 2 summers.
And this, your kind of music that you teach is basically jazz, I would assume.
It's a mixture of jazz, rock, and blues. I like all those genres, and it was kids from 8 to 18.
Oh,
it was
my
ensembles and workshops. It was very enjoyable.
What kind of age group do you teach?
Well, I'm teaching at Hobart and William Smith College, so mainly
all
college
kids,
students,
yeah.
and I also teach at my own studio in East Rochester, which I teach adult students, little kids,
everything.
a lot of junior high and high school kids in the east side suburbs mainly. But it keeps me busy. Before that I taught at Hochstein Music School for about 18 years, and now I just have my own space where.
And you teach private at home.
Yeah, I teach at home right now. Where I'm in the midst of a startup studio in Pittsford, which is not fully functioning yet, but we're it's going to be under the name the Rochester Contemporary School of Music, pending paperwork being filed. But you know, we're going to have a lot of things offered, so watch for that on the internet. And we don't have our website up yet, so I can't direct you there. But
got a lot of amazing, educated people here, don't we, Nick?
Yes.
And sure. Put a group together like this, the way you guys play. You play, I know, with other groups also, but this group, you guys play here and there together quite often, I assume. And some of the play. What is your main goal for your future now?
Well, what I'd like to see happen with this group, with the amazing talents of the musicians I have the pleasure of playing with, would be to seek some management. We are currently looking for management, and to play, you know, larger venues. I mean, we're not at the age group where we're trying to make it. We just want to enjoy playing nice gigs, like jazz festivals, outdoor theaters, and larger venues like that. You
know, you talk about nice gigs. Suzanne and I, my wife and I, met you and reviewed your band here over at the Inn, Canandaigua Inn.
Yeah, the Canandaigua Inn on the Lake.
Inn on the Lake, right. And actually it was you, and I think this was a couple other people you were with that day. I don't think it was the same. You were working with somebody.
Yeah, it was a different drummer and bass player.
Right, yeah. And Craig is used to playing some pretty fancy clubs, and I felt that was a real ritzy place that you play. You play there quite often, don't you?
Actually, I do. They have an outside venue called the Sandbar, and I perform there a lot. And inside the New York Wine and Culinary Center in Canandaigua, this group has played several times at the Love and Cup up in Henrietta. And you know, like I said, we're trying to stay with some nice venues and have people enjoy this genre of music, which is called fusion. It's an old term, but it does mean the melding and you know, the aggregate of jazz, rock, and blues, and these guys can really tear that stuff up.
And I can see tonight. I could see the excitement in you guys playing together. It really doesn't get old for you. I can see, and I could feel it too. Jazz isn't I'm not really into the jazz, but after sitting here tonight,
into country.
You'd have to say that. I do like country. I'm sorry, but I'll tell you, after sitting with you guys and out there and listening to it, it really is. I really did enjoy what you did, and I'd love to hear more of you and get you back on the show sometime. And you can do some more of our showcase for us that we did today, and so. Did we, Nick, did you have any?
We covered just about everything.
I think we covered just about everything that we could possibly cover. Really.
All the contact information.
Yeah, the CDs. We had to. He's endorsement. You want to kind of, well, actually, you want to get it off the table or his hands? Might be easier getting it from Craig's hands. You can see it real good.
This is a CD called Earthbound, come out in '06. It's got 12 cuts on it. There was a variety of drummers and bass players that played on it with me and some keyboard players. But Steve was featured on 4 of the cuts on there. And some of it was recorded at the Finger Lakes Community College Pro Tools equipped studio and some other studios. Ray did want me to mention some of the endorsements that I have, if you want to hear about that. I mentioned I have Kaler vibrato systems, Kurt Mangan strings, Spectraflex cables, Brazen guitars out of Southern California. I did have an endorsement with the guitar I played tonight. That company unfortunately folded due to just poor advertising. And Exotic pedals out of Southern California. I have endorsements with those companies.
Well, that says a lot for companies like that to endorse you. You know, I'm very proud and happy to have had you on the show, Craig. I've been wanting to get you on for a year. I finally got you. And you couldn't have brought any better people with you than these two here. So
that's for sure.
And I know how much you talked about them on the phone about how great they were, and they sure are. So we thank you for joining us today. And we hope we hope you all enjoyed the show as much as I did, and that you'll join us again next week for another show. And you guys come back again and see us, okay? And thank you, Craig, so much.
Thank you, Ray.
Thanks,
Sure.
Ray.
Thanks, Nick.
Steve?
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Enjoyed
Good.
it so much.
Having us.
Yep.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, buddy. And you're invited anytime. Everybody, from us to you, from the music show,
See you next week.
hasta la vista.